Hello, everyone. Not too many people here today, but I'm still going to put in the link to the sign-in sheet. Please go ahead and sign in. We'll give it a couple more minutes, but if no one else is here, I guess it'll probably be a quick meeting. We might push off the roadmap update if it's only the four of us until next week so that we can hopefully maximize the people that see our roadmap update. Or actually, we could just go over it quickly and then do it again next week. I assume it'll probably be a relatively quick update. Oh, dear. All right. It's 6 minutes past. Let's go ahead and get started. Could I get a note taker for today?
I can take notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's start out. Let's see. I'll mark you as the note taker, Ryan. New faces. I don't think we have any new faces. So let me share my screen and let's hop right into this roadmap. Oh dear. Give me 1 second. I'll rearrange all my Zoom windows. Alrighty, perfect. So just taking a quick look at the roadmap here. Let's start with the stuff that's in progress and then go to the stuff that it needs investigation. And then we can go to the stuff that's planned. I think that probably makes the most sense. Order-wise, implement Node.js, RFC 14, support Yarnberry. Is there any updates on this?
No, not really.
Cool. It's concise. Is there anything that needs to be done to support this at all?
I wouldn't say so. No, there's just been priority issues.
Gotcha. And I guess maybe as just a point of record, if people wanted to know what was currently being worked on and the current status, Tim, are you working on this particular one right here, the RFC enable Yarnberry and yarn install?
Yep, exactly.
All right. And it looks like there is, never mind, that's an issue. I don't know how this track by works. I thought this was a PR for a second. Awesome.
I think there is a PR though on that same. Yep.
Cool.
It's woefully out of date, but yeah.
All right. Perfect. Let's move on to I guess these stuff that needs investigation. Open these up real quick. So we have reloadable process types. It looks like the only outstanding reloadable process type is Ruby. I assume that this is once again a prioritization thing. Just no, Ruby maintainers haven't had the time to work on this. Cool. And then yeah, obviously you can track it through this issue here. Next up we have distributed Buildpacks via Docker Hub. This might be done. There was some change.
I don't think it is. I think the last thing is like purely documentation thing. I think someone needs to go and like clone all the repos in the org and like grep for gcr.io. And I think you'll be surprised. It's mostly README files that have like references to images that's no longer the canonical location. So I think like implementation wise, we're done, but the thing that's left, I think, is documentation everywhere. I think we still say like, pull this image from GCR.
Gotcha. In that case, then, I guess that's the next thing that needs to be done. So we kind of know the status. So should I plump this back into in progress?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave a comment saying that's mostly docs at this point.
And then finally, we have default behavior for Buildpacks set language ecosystem environment variables. There was a big push for this a little while ago, and then it kind of petered out a little bit. I assume that we probably need to go over and just like look at some of these again. Like, I don't know that .NET root is going to have the same problem anymore, just because we kind of completely restructured how the build pack works. I know that we still set it in like one scenario, but I'm not entirely sure that it's a big deal. I'd have to go back and look at the like NPM stuff, and then MRI would also probably need to take a look at as well. So I guess we probably just need to go through and sanitize this issue and just make sure that all of the things that we have open are still relevant and just check everything. I will keep this here then. Next up, we have the 3 planned ones. I can't imagine there's going to be big stuff for any of these. Remote debug, I assume basically nothing about this has changed. Okay.
I think the next one that made sense to do was Node, but we just don't. We don't have the bandwidth, at least at the moment. It's relatively simple to implement. I think I've talked about it in a previous working group meeting about the implementation being pretty straightforward.
If you have an idea that Node would be the next best thing, would you be willing to at some point in the future or work with someone to write up an issue just so we have something to track here?
Sure.
Awesome. In that case, then I guess there's probably not much else to talk about this. This is auto-generate reference documentation. This is a bit of a white whale. I don't know. I feel like it's been here for a while and we haven't really talked about or made any progress towards it just because it keeps getting bumped down the priority list.
I mean, I think that the main thing here is environment variables. And I just think that it's like a huge amount of work for Buildpacks to actually shift to like what's proposed in this. Like every time I go in and make some sort of change, like most recently it was like I'm pulling code out of npm install in order to implement this like lib node.js shared library. And like one of the types that's in there just has like references to like os get-env, right? And so you just have that like strewn across every repo where it's like there isn't a canonical place where we like read in the environment. It's like riddled throughout the code. At any point, the process might reach out and grab environment variables. And so like step one is like all build packs need to like have a plan for how they read in environment variables and do that in a uniform way. Only then can you actually like have a way to like actually auto generate this, because the other thing is like do static analysis of the entire code base to figure out which environment variables it might be using, and like that's just like that's a ridiculous project.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned this last time, but we made strides in trying to sort of standardize when we pull in environment variables with HTTPD and Nginx, because they had just a very large number of environment variables we had to pull in. This had a pretty actually cool side benefit of making our tests way more thread safe and robust, because we could just do things like pass objects in instead of having to pass the actual environment variables. So maybe we should write up some tracks of work for like all the language families that are basically like, hey, you should find a way to basically like preload environment configuration and put like the configuration in one place in code and then reflect that probably somewhere in like Buildpack TOML, right? Because that's like what's proposed in the RFC. But yeah.
I mean, I think my preference would be for someone to figure out what that should look like and show an example and then ask all the language family teams to adopt that, rather than an issue that says, figure out for yourself how you're going to make this work.
That's fair. All right. I might have some ideas on that, but yeah, I don't know that I necessarily want to sign up for that right now. Are there any other comments on this auto-generate reference documentation? Gotcha. And then finally, for the roadmap, we have defined an image dependency retention policy for Paketo images. I have no concept on what needs to be done for this at all.
I think this mostly was waiting on some work from Dan Makuza, mostly to like, I think, write up that definition, the retention policy definition somewhere. And then there's some work to like figure out how to automate that retention policy. Basically like purging images from locations where it is no longer under the like retention policy. I think the retention policy is so generous that like, I'm pretty sure there are no images that are in violation at this point. I think it's like 3 years or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's pretty generous, like time.
Gotcha. So we just need to reach out to Dan Makuza on this one.
Yeah.
All right. I think that concludes our roadmap update. Is there anything anyone has any questions about? I think, like I said at the beginning of this meeting, it might make sense for us to potentially just put this in topics for next week as well, and hopefully grab a couple more people. And
I don't know if we need to do that, just because we didn't necessarily really talk about any items that we haven't talked about in the last couple.
That's fair.
I mean, if people like feel that way, we can do it, but I don't think anything here is like super new that people would have missed.
Sounds fine to me then.
Yeah, there's no net new things. We haven't added anything this year so far. I think we're waiting. There's like the Red Hat folks I know are working on like a UBI RFC. And so like that would be added. That's new, but it hasn't landed yet. And then we're probably going to start thinking or looking into what it means to do better ARM64 support. And so that will probably land. Those are probably like the major things I can think of that would land. They're not there yet.
Gotcha. All right. Moving on to the next thing on our agenda, we have outstanding RSCs. We have 2 Java specific ones, but I don't necessarily see anyone here representing Java, so it might not make sense to talk about these unless someone here wants to talk about them. All right, cool. Let's talk about the next 2 up here. First off, we have proposal to create language family builders. I just saw that Dan Makuza put a comment on here asking for builder maintainer comments. I didn't have a chance to read this. It was 2 hours ago. But I will take a look at this hopefully this afternoon. Although upstream as well, there's an upstream issue to squash builder images, and that also has been getting non-zero amounts of comments in the past couple of weeks, asking for clarifications and whatnot. I still probably wouldn't hold my breath. It would probably take a while for them to get anything into, say, pack or something like that. So it probably still makes sense for us to do this. And like part of me thinks that it's probably the right thing to do in terms of like actually running builders in production. But yeah, I will take a look at these and comment. And then the next one is from Ryan. Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, I think this is has all the approvals needed. I'm kind of wary to go ahead and just merge it. No one other than me and Dan Makuza have talked about this. I put it in front of the Cloud Foundry Foundation Technical Oversight Committee. Their feedback was, this looks great. And Chris Clark, who's our liaison with the foundation, is showing it to, apparently the Cloud Foundry Foundation has lawyers that can read over stuff like this. So this RFC is getting read by some lawyers. I don't know what feedback they'll have, but maybe they'll point some legalese out at me that could be worded better or is unclear, or yeah. Anyway, I think we're basically in a state that this looks good. My plan is to leave it open to hear this feedback, possibly from the foundation's lawyers, and hopefully have this merged by Friday, at which point we can start to plan for how we're going to hold an election and when that's going to happen.
Have you given a summary of this RFC already and I just missed it?
Yeah, I gave one last week. The summary is that we're going to hold elections. There's basically, the way that it's going to work is that we're going to have a 3-person steering committee. Each seat on the steering committee is going to be for a 2-year term. Although for the very first election that we hold, it's going to be 2 of those seats are for a 2-year term and 1 of those seats is for a 1-year term. This is to make sure that we have like context that can be handed off every year, instead of a situation where like maybe the entirety of the steering committee changes over. And then there's some rules about candidates and their eligibility, and voters and their eligibility, how voting works, which is basically a ranked choice algorithm. So you you vote for everyone in order of your preference. And there's also some rules about the number of people from any given company, and then also a specific rule about the addition of a candidate from the community. So this is likely to be someone who's like a major user, but isn't necessarily a contributor. And so, yeah, it's worth a read through just to understand the elections concepts in general. But it's pretty much based off of the existing Cloud Foundry Foundation talk election process, with some modifications that are tailored to better support the Paketo project, mostly because it's just like a much smaller project, generally speaking.
Hey, this is Ram. I just pinged Chris to find out if he has any updates for the Paketo working group from LF Legal. So hopefully there's some news from that end.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome. This is exciting. Great. I think that we are done with all of our open RFCs. I go to the next agenda item, CMB updates and questions. The biggest CNB update that I can think of right now is they are fully into the stack removal process. So if that's something that you've been excited for or nervous about, brace yourself and brace yourself. I think that they have like a couple of open PRs, and honestly, it's a little bit hard to track because like the place where they are now for stack ID removal is like 3 different RFCs to the spec that like partially supersede each other. So if you want to hunt that down, good luck and Godspeed. That's the only thing I can think of. Project updates. Do we have any project updates? Don't think there's anything big. The only thing that might be worth calling out is I believe that Java now has some form of internal node support. I think that just got released this week. I don't actually know what that entails because I am not a Java developer or a Java Buildpacks maintainer, but I believe that they have now some support for if you're running a Java app with Node frontend material. And then finally, any open mic, any questions, anything like that?
Hi, Ram again. I'd love to get an idea of what it takes to be able to provide ARM support across Buildpacks. And the reason I'd like to know that is I see good potential for sprinkling sort of Paketo roadmap / updates on the Cloud Foundry blog. We could, of course, publish to the Paketo blog as well and cross-post it, but that's just a technicality. But the idea is, I think the Cloud Foundry community in general will benefit from, or rather the Paketo community will benefit from like some information about that. Okay, so yeah, Ryan sent me a link. I'll take a look at that. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, there's an ongoing discussion. Feel free to
Okay.
post further questions. Sophie wrote it up and Dan has provided some feedback. There's some like history of things we've done in the past, things that are needing to be done, but it's worth maybe another look and kind of refining at this point to figure out what the next step is.
Okay.
Just a quick glance up here. I think the whole dependency section would probably need a rework, considering we've completely overhauled and changed how we do dependencies entirely.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, that document definitely, I could spend some time updating it. I think it's still pretty useful just for like the major components that we care about, but yeah, like Forrest said, like dependencies, like definitely need to update that, but the major considerations are all there. We also have the ARM Slack channel in the Paketo Slack. Haven't looked at the latest, but I know that there are a few people in our community who have been working on different tooling and things related to ARM support, which could also be a helpful place to check out. I think also we were talking earlier about, adding the roadmap items around ARM64, and that would also potentially have some like helpful context about like what we actually need to do to support that. I just don't think we've gotten around to fleshing that out.
And I guess furthermore, if you're looking for interested community members as well, is his name Jacob from Rapid 7? Starts with a J. I'm
Jericho.
Jericho. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jericho from Rapid 7. He has been talking a lot to us about potentially like how could we support ARM64 as well.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think he was coming at it from like running Gravitron instances and things like that, and he was worried about like compliance and stuff for some OSs that he had. I think maybe like a year ago or something, but I'll definitely reach out to him. And thanks everyone for the inputs. I think I have a few good starting points that I can make use of to write something. So yeah, thanks.
Are there any other questions or any other discussion topics that people would like? Awesome. Well, then I will call this meeting. See y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.